Hi everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Ian is a Weirdo. I know I'm low energy, and I look like shit, and I sound like shit right now. I've been sick. If you have been here for the past couple of days, you've seen progression of me slowly but surely getting better, but it still looks awful and sounds awful, and I still feel crappy. So, just is what it is. So my drink throat needs lubrication for a story time. And this is something that I kind of wanted to make for a little while, and then I fell off my radar, and then I started thinking about it again, and I kind of wanted to do it as like a way to direct certain conversations off of live streams. Um, because I'm okay with like things involving like my mental health and how I'm getting through things, how I'm doing. I'm okay with letting those be a little bit more um, like open and transparent because I feel like for me, like I don't mind letting them be that way because someone could be on the other side of the computer, phone, whatever, and be in a similar position, and um, so I kind of always look at it like that, like okay, well maybe someone else is out there feeling the same way, and maybe they hear this and don't feel so alone, or however the case may be. Um, so I talk about my mental health pretty freely, sometimes too freely, and I'm sure you all are like, yeah, you could probably calm down and not tell as much as you do, but just kind of who I am and kind of my nature. So, so I'm going to talk about everything, kind of everything I can put together from last year. Sorry, I'm so congested. Don't you hate when you're trying to talk and you feel like pressure bubble like in your sinuses? Um, Probably the worst time to try to make this video, but you know, what's another hurdle and like a string of 50, right? Um, so I guess one component of the and I'm also side note, I'm gonna turn off comments, and then I would prefer if you can to not come into other lives or things that I'm doing and be like, I watched this video and I'm so sorry, or like, I'm turning off comments for a reason. Like, if people want to know, I have friends who were genuinely like nerve nervous about how I was doing because I just kind of disappeared off the face of the earth. Um, and so like to tell them the story a little bit, like that feels appropriate and okay with me. Um, but I'm not doing this for like additional anything, and in fact, it kind of makes me feel worse to have to like relive parts of it. So if you could do me the courtesy of like like if you watch this video, um, and like just please don't like ask for like follow up questions or anything. Um, just like if you could do that for me, I would really appreciate that. Um, so that's why the videos comments are gonna be off for this video. So one part of my uh, story that leads up into what happened last year is that I have been diagnosed with many mental disorders since I was 15. I was showing signs of many of them before I was 15. And then over time, the diagnoses have changed, which is pretty common if you've been diagnosed for a long time, a lot of things. But but bipolar was always in the mix. Anxiety was always in the mix. Um, and I think there was another one. Uh, but uh, but as I've gotten older, those have stayed, and things like PTSD that I didn't know that that's what was going on. Things like those have come up, and just a litany of fucking diagnoses, right? And so I I took a couple years away from medicine, which is generally not a great idea for bipolar folks. Even if you're like anti-medicine, which you're allowed to be, like you can do whatever you want. Although like there's a lot of risk involved with bipolar people and not being on meds. Sorry, this guy's doing something real cute. I gotta watch. Um, so uh, yeah, like bipolar people being off their meds is pretty like scary. So I did take a little break from my meds for a while and then came back to it, and had been medicated and going to a psychiatrist and to a therapist and all this stuff. And in the late summer of 2019, early fall, um, first what happened is I got thyroiditis, and um, so my thyroid was like 4 times the size that it should be, and like it hurt to swallow, everything just. I felt like I had the flu all the time. I felt like I feel now actually. But my neck was like much bigger. It was crazy. It was the size of like the rest of my face, so it just went straight down. Um, and then so my thyroid just stopped working at all. My thyroid does not function anymore. And then within a month or two, I also got a concussion. So I had um, it was classified as like a mild TBI. Um, but I had symptoms that lasted way longer than what they should have been for the amount of hit that I got hit, um, which was like my own doing. Like they always ask like how you get a concussion, which is I always find really strange. Like instead of being like just like where did you get hit, they're like how did you get your concussion? And so I have to go through this whole story about how I like ran. I was trying to go to a like meeting on Zoom when I was at work, and I was holding the laptop to go into my office, and I just like hit the corner of the laptop on my head. Mm. and and that's how uh, it happened. And I'm just like, this is the stupidest fucking story. But I had 6 weeks of sick time, and the doctors were like, that's plenty, like for what you have. But like the light sensitivity, the noise sensitivity, all of that, like it lasted way longer, and the brain fog from it was just astronomical. So all of that is happening in like August to September-ish or something of 2019, and all of a sudden I'm having like way harder of a time regulating my emotions that I ever have, or like that I have as an adult. And so I go back or I go to a residential treatment facility in December of 2019 for the first time as an adult. And so there's different like levels of care in um, mental health treatment. Um, there's gonna be more than I say, but like they all kind of like merge, and like it just depends on where you go, what they're called, and the level that they do. But they'll kind of like no matter what system you go through, they all kind of equate to be the same thing. So residential is usually like you'll be in there a couple weeks to couple months, and you're in there all night and day, every day. You have someone watching you, but it's not you're not on like high alert, like you're gonna hurt yourself, like you know that second. Um, but it's like you might need someone just in case. Um, Now there are places that are more focused on like crisis. Hey baby, hey baby. There are places that are more focused on crisis where they do watch you like you're gonna hurt yourself or someone else like that. And then once you get out of residential, then you can do like a PHP, which is a partial hospitalization program where you can go home. Hey baby, can you see his little paw? Isn't that cute? Um, where you can go home at the end of the night. PHP is just more hours in therapy and like group therapy than IOP. That's the only difference. So I've been doing these cycles of starting residential, going all the way through to IOP, and then I'll be okay for a couple months, and then I have to start the process again, going through residential, and like maybe I go to the hospital one time, and then I go to residential, and blah blah blah, and like it's exhausting, and I felt like I was just using like going through like all of the resources I had that were available in North Carolina, and I felt like I still wasn't feeling any better, and like this bipolar that I deal with now is nowhere near the bipolar that I dealt with before. And like the worsening of symptoms is so significant. Um, and so, yeah. Um, so that was so there's like one underlying theme is that I kept having to go back and forth into treatment, come out for a few months, and then go back into treatment again and again and again, being like the treatment cycle, like the rinse and repeat cycle, which, I know a lot of people who are in treatment, they feel the same way. And it is exhausting, it is demoralizing, um, it really makes you want to give up because you're like, why would I not give up? This is just there. This is not living. Like this is not a life worth like sticking around for. Um, I will. I, I will. On that note, I will say just a trigger warning, and I'll try to call it out as soon as I can. But just a trigger warning for like the rest of the stuff. Like this is gonna be some heavy, deep, sad shit. So like, all of the trigger warnings for those types of things um, apply, and I'll try to put it at the front of this video. Um, but yeah, so just heads up that I might not catch it in time, as my brain sometimes moves a little faster than my mouth. Um, or the other way around, I don't know. Um, so let me take a little sip. So that happened, and so it's getting close to like this like threshold of like I can't keep doing this on and on again. And my relationship started to deteriorate, and we were doing couples counseling, and um, I just like I had no perception of how bad a partner I had been, and I'm not saying that in a sense of like no one sat there and just like berated me and told me I had been a bad partner. It was like due to all of the things that I deal with because of my mental illnesses, like memory loss and um, more turbulent emotions and like more volatile mood swings and stuff like that. Um, all of those things contributed. All of the well, all of those things, especially because they were like left unchecked by me, just made me a pretty awful person to be around. Um, and I was totally oblivious to it, you know. And um, so like things there were some things that like weren't going great, some worse than others, but like I uh, to like that detail, like that's pretty much as in detail as I'll go about that because that's definitely not all my business to share, but I can confidently say that like I was just like really shitty to be around. And I had no idea and no intention of being that shitty. So, uh, so in trigger warning, I had been out for a couple months, and I, um, I don't even know like how it happened. Um, I so I do have a history of attempts. I more so have a history of like suicidal ideation of like thinking about it, stuff like that. Um, but but not really attempts. So I had made an attempt at 12, and at 12 years old, and then I made the attempt last June when I was 32. So it was like 20 years. I was like, I feel like I was actually pretty good, and no one else thought that was a good number. I was like, I don't know. I'm seeing that. I'm seeing 20 years. That's pretty substantial. But um, so I went into the hospital again, and my wife moved out and never came back. And um, like it kind of started as like I'm not sure if I'm ready to come back right now. And I was like, because she was staying with her parents, they live like 15 minutes away. I was like, I totally understand. I'm not gonna force it because last time you were here, like it was a very traumatic experience and stuff like that. Um, and then and then it just kind of never went past that. Um, and so I lived with my parents alone for maybe 2 months, and then and all the while I'm talking to my wife like every day, and I, but I was like, I really can't live here like by myself. I can't do it, and and so I tried to find a place that she would like if she did ever move back in, um, which turns to be like a huge thing blowing up in my face. Um, because I guess like you know it just wasn't the right thing to do. But so I ended up moving to the other apartment that I was in that you all got to see, and that's where I got to have some space for the crafts and stuff, and that was just my shit and all of that. And but I wasn't going out and like hanging out with people or doing things or anything like that. And it started to, my like mental health started to deteriorate very quickly, and um, all of the things that I um, mentioned before, hey baby boy, all the things I mentioned before kind of came and uh, rushed me, and especially like, you know, the idea of like having hurt this person that I love, um, and you know, even though I wasn't in control of it, I have no memory of it. Like I was manic, like I don't remember shit about it. Like it still like doesn't excuse the behavior, um, which is a really hard thing to grasp because you're like, how do I take ownership over something that I wasn't even there for? Um, but you still have to. Um, and so I really like, I like hit like rock bottom in October of last year, so October 2024. And so I felt like I had exhausted all of the treatment centers, kind of in and around North Carolina. I'd been to some outside of North Carolina. I went to one in Boston, and I've been to like another place. And um, I uh, I looked on Psychology Today, which is a great resource. You can look up therapists, psychiatrists, treatment centers, all this shit. And sorry, it's like, so it's like congested right there at the top. Okay, okay. Um, and I so I was just kind of losing a lot of faith in the mental health care I would receive in North Carolina. I had a good psychiatrist, but that kind of was the extent of it. Um, and yeah, so I really like wanted, and and also because of my health issues, I'm not dealing with like, not to say that run of the mill, quote unquote, bipolar is easy to treat because it still takes constant like, it's a moving target regardless, but the target that moves for me is much wider than it was for me prior to all of my health stuff. Um, well, all of my physical health stuff. What are you sneezing at, you doof? And so uh, I can't just see like an average psychiatrist. I need to see someone who's like a specialist in bipolar disorder. Um, so I went on Psychology Today, and I was thinking like what states probably have like the best mental health care. And so I looked up a couple places, and um, one of the places I looked was California, and I'm like, I don't know anything about California, so I don't know how, which of these places, or like which of these cities is better, or anything. And so I first went to a crisis place in San Diego. I was there for a month. I didn't have any like digital access. And then I went to a place in Orange County, and then I had pretty much unlimited digital access, like with my phone. I think I even went live. And the sober living house that I went to. Most of the places I went to, they were not mental health focused, and this is becoming more and more a trend, unfortunately. Um, Kind of for everyone, um, I think. But a lot of them are focusing a lot more on drug rehabilitation. And while there's such high comorbidity between people who struggle with substance use disorder and people who have mental illness, mental health issues, um, how things get talked about sometimes can be a little bit um, and like I said, on both sides. I feel like sometimes when it's just mental health, like people who are dual diagnosis don't get the same treatment, and don't get as much out of treatment, and then vice versa. If it's talking about like relapse prevention for substances, then it's like, it's harder to pitch, and they try to make it work, but I don't know if it ever actually works. So I was in Orange County for a month, and then I was in. I've been in LA since like the early December, and I was in a sober living house here. I originally came to LA specifically for a treatment um, that's similar to. There's a couple different like electric or magnetic stimulated, like brain stimulating treatments out there, but the common thread is that bipolar is always like almost a contraindication, meaning that if you have bipolar, you can't do it because it might make you manic, and they really don't want to make you manic, which is understandable, but like when you're feeling really desperate, you're just like, just fucking zap me. I do not give a fuck. Like, so, so as soon as I moved here for that treatment, I couldn't get that treatment. But I started going to this treatment facility and living in the sober living house, getting to know LA better, and making friends here, and that's cool. So that's how I ended up in LA. And then the whole time I've been in California, whenever I was talking about where I came from, they were like, "Oh, so you're staying, right?" I'm like every single person would ask me that, and I was like, "That's such a weird kind of like thing to assume." But I guess a lot of people come to California and stay in California. Um, but there are pros and cons of staying in California for me. Um, Pros of having access to health care, whether it be mental health care, or gender affirming care. Um, all of those things, I feel like a lot more protected and a lot more support. Even if there's still not everything that I need, it's still more than North Carolina is probably ever going to be able to give me. Um, the hard thing about being away from North Carolina is that I have friends there, and I have family there, and so weeks like this when I'm sick or something like that, and if I needed help, or weeks when I'm gonna be depressed, or something like that, I'm not, the idea of like how am I gonna have someone help me out through this, um, because like I'm not disabled for no I didn't get called disabled for no reason. There's a fucking reason. Um, so trying to figure out how I can get support in that, and um, all of that. So it's not, you know, I feel like there is a, a lot that I didn't talk about, but is not worth getting into the weeds of right now. And I already talked for like 30 minutes, but I think that basically just to say is like I didn't like come to California on great terms, and that's okay. Like like it's not. I don't even know if I should say like California has been like the right the right move for me, or if I've just gotten lucky in the treatment I've received here. Um, so I don't know. It's a big change, and I don't know if it's like the right one, but it's what I'm gonna try to do and see if it works. So yeah, so Scotty and I are just hanging out. Um, I would say like ask me questions, but honestly, just don't. Yeah, I mean, that's basically the premise of it is just like I came here for mental health care, and I'm staying because in times like this where it's like actually scary to know if you're gonna have rights tomorrow or at the end of the day, um, then this is a state that like will fight for those rights at the very least, you know. And I I have to acknowledge that those allow me a little bit more freedom to relax here than I would be able to in you know from the south. So yeah. So yeah, that's basically the highlights, I guess. Highlights, lowlights. Um, so you know, I just yeah, I and no one forced again, no one forced me to talk about this. Um, I just like last year was brutal, and I got very close to being over it many times, and um, like one when I like in June, and then one in October when I was like, if I can't get it this round, I'm done. Like I have nothing left to give. Like that's the mentality I came with, which it was like I can't do this again. Um, and especially doing it alone after like after being with someone for 10 years. I don't even I never dated before, and so that's like such a weird experience for me as well. Um, so yeah, um, but it's okay to have things change, and I but this was like less of a change, more like a violent like upheaval of like my whole life. So, and I know that it was an upheaval of other people's lives as well. So I can't um, pretend like that didn't happen. So, anyways, I think I'm just rambling at this point. Yeah. So that's the story, and I'm sticking to it, kind of. I might have missed some details or downplayed my involvement or being awful or something like that, um, but yeah, it's it's been really hard to not talk about um, when people ask about it, um, because like I don't want to be like people ask me about it, I want to be like fuck off, like even though I'm thinking fuck off, like um, if I like wanted to talk about it, I would be talking about it, like but I know a lot of people just had really good intentions, and they were just trying to be very sweet and are very sweet, um, but especially in the beginning, especially in the fall when people were asking me, why I was in California, I could like I just freeze up and like turn off my phone or whatever, like whatever I was on, and just like walk away or try to like figure out a way to do it where I was like, I'm just doing like mental health, which mental health is a part of it, obviously, but like the other stuff too. And I just did not know how to talk about that huge elephant in the room that I knew about and I couldn't tell if they knew or suspected. And I didn't want to have any conversations surrounding it. I still don't really because um, I don't need anyone's opinion on my wife because I still have a lot of love and respect for her. Um, Another reason comments are off because um, I'm not gonna. I wouldn't put up with any negative talk about her. Um, but yeah, so I'm gonna let you all go. I'm gonna try to get some sleep. It is 5:30 in the morning. I have not slept because coughing my fucking brains out. Um, yeah. Okay. So yep, that's the video that I said I'd do, and yep, there it is. I don't know how to finish a video about like something like this. But yeah, like again, please don't make me talk about this more. I like occasionally I will when like it's on my terms, and if I bring it up, you're welcome to talk about it. I don't want it to be like I don't want to police how people talk. That's never something I want to do. I just whistled my mouse for no reason. Um, I but like I just would prefer if no one like started talking about it because it's just a hard subject that sucks and I just would rather not. But anyways, thank you for listening and I hope this clarified some things um, for you if you had any interest in it. But yeah, I'll talk to you later. Bye.